This episode is made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.
Hey, this is René Brooks, creator of the blog Black Girl Lost Keys. I'm happy to be here guest hosting Distraction during ADHD Awareness Month. ADHD awareness, like when people hear the word awareness, they so often think like, okay, I know about it, now what? But awareness is a much deeper definition than that. To be aware of something means that you're mindful of ADHD and the way that it affects people's lives and the way that it can interact with your life if you're not experiencing ADHD personally. So to me, when I think of awareness, it's not just knowledge, it's the ability to apply that knowledge and to use it as a way to be compassionate and understanding and to make room in society and in your social circles and in your friend group and in your place of employment for people who are experiencing ADHD, where they can receive grace and compassion and kindness and not so much ridicule. So that's what awareness means for me. Now today, you're going to hear more from my conversation with John Hazelwood, an ADHD advocate and a mentor for men's health. In the part you're about to hear, I am telling John about being diagnosed with ADHD and how it gave me a roadmap for how to take care of myself. When I was diagnosed, the thing that I was really stuck with was, well, one, like after I went through the whole, like, why didn't I know this earlier? Wouldn't things have been so much easier if I had known? Um, I think the main thing that I saw was, okay, now I have to figure out how to work with this thing so I can still go get what I want. Like I come from a family of women who are relentlessly persistent. And so there's an obstacle. That's nice. It can be an obstacle, but I still have a place that I'm going and I'm going to get there. So now now it's not just an owner's manual. Now it's a map cuz I'm going to sit here and poke at this and you're going to tell me how I'm going to use this manual that I've been given now to figure out how to navigate my way around this obstacle so I can still get what I want, because I'm still going to have healthy relationships. I'm still going to be able to have a career that I can maintain. Like those things haven't been taken off the table of options for me. I just now have to go about it in a different way, and I didn't know I needed to go about it in that way. So now for me it was like, oh, that's why it was so hard.
That aha moment.
Okay. Like, okay, let's take a pause and recalibrate the way that we're attacking this so that now I can get in there with precision and go, okay, when this happens, here's how we pivot so we can still get where we're going. So like for me, and I realize it's not like that for everybody. Um for me, it was an answer to the why is this shit that I'm trying to do and that I'm going to do regardless, why is it so much damn harder for me than it is for everybody else? Like the question was never whether or not I would get it. It was, would I kill myself in the process from working myself to death trying to get it? So it was like, oh, thank God. I knew it had to be something. I knew it had to be some reason why this was all such a strain for me all the time. Because, when you're working your hardest in pursuit of a goal like that, to be honest with you, I somewhat blame society for this because I feel like we set people up for the fall by telling them if you do all the right things and you work hard enough, you'll get the result. I don't think that's true. Sometimes you can do everything right and you can pursue whatever you're pursuing and you still don't get the result. And some of it is
Mhm.
just luck or happenstance,
Yeah.
whether you want to consider it good luck or bad luck. But in most scenarios, sure, your hard work will pay off. And I just felt like, okay, it's not it's not a lack of talent or skill or knowledge there, but there's something that's keeping me from doing this, and it looks like a lack of desire, but I know it's not a lack of desire because I'm me. I know what I want to do. I know what it looks like to everybody else, but it's not that. It's something, and it's undefinable, and I don't know what it is, and I hope one day I figure it out because it's blocking me from getting where I need to go. And I'm looking at people like, I felt like I was always looking at people who didn't have what I had and still were running circles around me as far as accomplishing the sort of things I wanted to accomplish. And it was like, okay, what do they have that I don't?
Yeah.
When I found out I had ADHD, I was like, ah, this is what they have that I don't. Executive
But
function.
see, to interject on that, the thing is that okay, you find out you have ADHD. Then there's the what now?
Yeah.
What happens now? Because you back when I like in grade school, you never wanted to be the kid that got pulled out of class to get special assistance because you were seen as a slow kid, you were seen as a dumb kid, or you're not good enough for A, B, and C. You didn't feel normal. So then,
Oh, see, I was a gifted kid, so they were always pulling me out of class for something. They were pulling me out. Like, I feel like we were like the little lab rat children. They were always pulling us out to test us or poke at us or prod at us, but like just fiddle around in our heads for something. At least that's the way that it worked where I was. So for me, it was like at the and also I was out of school. So that like that social aspect of it wasn't a consideration for me at that point. It was just like, I've got it. That's what I'm missing. And I've got I'm a researcher. I'm a deep diver. Like, that's one of the ways that ADHD has always benefited me. That's one of the reasons why I wish I'd known that they were talking with my parents about a diagnosis when I was a kid, because I would have had my ass in that library every day learning about ADHD to figure out if I thought I had ADHD or not. That's like that's one of the true regrets that I have. I feel like people don't tell children enough about their diagnosis. It's like they try to hide it from them. And to me, it's like there's nothing wrong with your child having a diagnosis. That's why you pursued it. Why would you not teach them some fundamental characteristic that they need to know about themselves in order to function? If we're teaching them to be functional adults, one of the things they're going to need to know is how to navigate the world with their brains. Why are you not telling them this?
well, it's almost like a protection mechanism, and I'm not a parent, but I can definitely say, like, just like you, my parents didn't tell me anything about me being tested. They knew, they always had a suspicion, but they never really came to me and voiced that concern and to let me know that hey, everything was okay, even though they know I lived in this. And honestly, they really didn't know some of the hardships that I dealt with in school, the teasing, the bullying,
Yes.
because I learned different. Like, it's why when I was younger, I fled to music so much in cars. Like, Pharrell Williams is by far my biggest person of inspiration that can ever exist because he sees sounds. Sync the Stage, I think that's what it's called, and you can correct me if I said that wrong. But I remember sitting there being a kid, and music was always something that I absolutely enjoyed. Where I'm sitting there listening to, whether it's Al Green or some Minnie Riperton or, Bootsy Collins on the bass guitar. They're playing music, and I'm seeing vibrant colors. I'm seeing just flashes of energy and things, and I'm like tapping out stuff. I'm doing things in weird, funky orders that corresponds to a rhythm. And then it wasn't until later in my life in college, before I graduated, that I started figuring out I learn through rhythmic cadences. So like lo-fi music helps me out. Or like
Aha.
I can literally sit down, let's say like I was studying for a calculus differential equations exam, and I played this one song by Wiz Khalifa called Up. And it's very melodic. and I played it for an hour non-stop. And literally, I remember when I was taking the exam, there was a part where I was getting stuck on. I started tapping the song out and playing it in my head. And the second I remembered exactly where I was sitting when I read over that certain lesson to that problem, I was able to pick up exactly. I visualized the book right in front of me, and I knew exactly where I was. I made that connection that was there. It's why I love to sit down and be outside and like listen to music because I love the acoustics. I love breaking things down.
Yes.
I'm an engineer,
Yes.
and it goes back to the what now. Everyone talks when you're younger, or our society has placed so much of a stigma and label on these mental conditions like ADHD, where they don't talk about the positives that exist. You're a creative thinker. You see the world different. There's nothing wrong with you. There is just something wrong with the way the world looks at you. You just see the world from a different lens, and it's okay. You want those people that think outside the box to be the innovators of tomorrow. You want those people that kind of go against the grain, go against what conformity is, and you want to see what you're able to create. And it's a beautiful thing. But people want to be able to appreciate you when you have something to offer versus to understand you and accept you for who you are right now. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where society is so backwards. And it literally it makes my blood boil sometimes when I think about some of the black men that look like me, or men of color who look like me, or women of color, or just people with ADHD in general, or any type of mental disorder. They're not telling you what greatness you're capable of because they rather label you versus understand you.
And to me, like, that says more like, okay, like that's over in the territory of the need to combat ableism for me, because I feel like so many times when we're talking about the conversation around labeling, the issue isn't what we're calling the grouping of symptoms. The issue is with the way that society makes conclusions about the people who have those labels. Like the issue, like ADHD doesn't mean anything to me other than that I have ADHD. Like, that's it. And that's all it should mean to anybody else. All these other adjectives that people use to describe people with ADHD, if they're negative, it's rooted in ableism.
Yeah, like honestly, think about this. To be a person of color, you're already born into this world with the world against you. Your back is already up against the wall. So imagine when your own mental is at warfare against everything else that society throws against you. It's
Yep.
like you're set up to fail in the womb and then outside of the womb. And so to navigate through this type of world like this right now, especially like, our country who still struggles with, some of our racial disparities, even when it comes down to mental health and the type of treatment that we receive and the representation, it makes life very, very difficult. It makes it hard for you to feel as if you can live versus just survive. And we have to flip that narrative. We have to start. I love the fact, and I love, and I'm going to constantly give you praise for this, but I love the fact that one of my favorite artists, SZA, retweeted you when it came to ADHD because it made me see more people who look like me with my skin tone, born into a world just like I am, doing something they excel at, and people love them. But do people really love them for who they are or what they provide? But for me, I take value in what she brings to the table because her mind is the reason why she's able to write, project her voice like that, and be so much of a creative person.
Correct.
I love that.
Hi, this is Sarah Gurton, the producer of Distraction. I'm here to share a conversation I had recently with Stephen Saltero, a Landmark College student, our wonderful sponsor. Stephen, welcome to Distraction.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, I was told you are a fantastic Landmark student and somebody we needed to speak with to share their experience at Landmark. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first off, thank you. This would probably be my, I guess, fourth, fifth semester here. It's kind of a weird time system at Landmark, at least. I was originally here in 2016 doing computer science as my original major, but due to some complications and the realization that computer science barely deals with human beings and only computers, I'm like, I don't like that. I like humans. So, but I ended up withdrawing and coming back here actually last fall, fall 2020, pursuing my degree in psychology. So that's actually getting my bachelor's, finishing my associates this winter in liberal studies, and continuing on hopefully at Landmark itself.
So what brought you to Landmark in particular?
Funny enough, so I pretty much have been diagnosed on the books as far as the system goes since first grade, but the IEP kind of came in effect around 7th grade. But one of the things that my mom actually is the one who found out about Landmark, and she works as an administrator for a school in my town that specializes in dyslexia, mainly is the big one, but that's the one you kind of have to work with. So very similar to that of Landmark.
Mm-hmm.
And as she was working there as an administrator at the time, she would go around the country to different parts, seminars. They'd have booths of certain places and like, here's some stuff that helps with LD and such and such. And Landmark had one of their booths open. So my mom started talking to them, and her friend, who was also the administrator at the time, they were co-administrating, was like, hey, I think Steven would really like this place. And I was working retail at the time, and I really hated it because I never really liked high school. So like, and education in general, why do I want higher education if I barely like what I'm in now? So in my idea, it was either work or school, and I already tried the school part and hated it. So let's go do some work then.
Mm-hmm.
But felt like there was always something more, but that's how I found out about Landmark and applied. I'm like, what's the worst could happen? I don't get in type stuff. And yeah.
So what was your diagnosis? I know you said you had an IEP and you got diagnosed in first grade, but
on the books it is labeled as, so I have dyslexia, ADHD, and then an auditory processing disorder. I don't really try to have my LDs kind of define me as I am. Personally, I feel like that takes a lot of the value of a person, and in turns, I don't try to inflict that onto other or project that on towards others. So you're a person, Sarah, so I'll keep you as Sarah. Don't need for LDs or labels. If I like you, I like you. If I don't like you, it doesn't have nothing to do with your LD.
Right. So how does that apply at Landmark? Like, how do you feel there being in a place full of diagnoses?
To be honest, I think it's one of the best places you could be diagnosed as, because I'm sure if anyone who's grown up in any sort of system where you are in and with an IEP or in a sort of the extra help class, it is ostracizing. My mom was smart enough and tried to avoid to put me into it, which I can't say the same for many people at Landmark. But growing up, so many people feel like that they don't have like a normal kind of education, and not just in the sense of the learning part, but at school. School is a social environment, especially high school, middle school, the most important times where you don't want to be labeled. And by default, you have this labeled as, oh, you're stupid, oh, you just think smaller, oh, you read backwards, whatever, or you're too spastic. And so it's very hard to deal with that. Coming to Landmark, everyone has kind of had that kind of similar experience in varying degrees. And so it's kind of this leveled playing field. It's like, okay, you've kind of grown up and kind of been conditioned in a way, using some psych terms, conditioned in a way to act like you are having a crutch. So you're going to lean on it. Well, guess what? We all have that crutch. Therefore, no one has the crutch. So you have to start apart from your LDs, because the real world does not care if you have ADHD. It does not care if you have dyslexia. If you can't do your job, you can't do your job. And that's simple as that. And so very much Landmark helps people with getting, we call the tool belt, and building that, repertoire of, hey, I know what the heck I need to do. I know what I'm bad at, but what I can get better at as well, and where I'm good and what I can do to strengthen. Instead of kind of the sort of, say, gamer term, min-maxing, what you're really good at naturally, Landmark tries to also raise what you're not very good at, your deficits, and kind of make everything lift together as opposed to, mountains and valleys.
Wow. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're in the right place. It sounds like you're doing great there. And we're going to check in with you a couple more times throughout the semester, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. And
of course,
for telling us your story, and we look forward to hearing more from you very soon.
I look forward as well.
You can learn more about Landmark College by going to lcdistraction.org. Now back to René and John.
Like, I mean, the greatest athlete of our time currently is a woman who has ADHD. Simone Biles has ADHD.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, like, and this is pure speculation on my part, I believe that part of the reason why Simone struggled with the twisties at this particular Olympics is that the medication that she takes for ADHD is not legal in Japan. You cannot bring it in, not even with a prescription. They're very specific about the types of stimulants they allow in. And so, therefore, she was like, even if ADHD doesn't affect the part of the brain that causes the twisties, your brain is still working harder. Your brain is, it's an organ. So if it's performing harder in another area because you don't have what you need, doesn't it stand to reason that something like the twisties could occur?
Yeah. Just hear her story and to see how what she is and everything that's about her and her mental was used against her to make it seem as if she has like an unfair advantage, sort of, and to kind of cast her out, off to the side as if, like, hey, you shouldn't be able to do this because of A, B, and C. Last time I checked, nobody's mind is normal. No two eyes see the same colors. No two,
Mm-mm.
no two bodies feel the same thing. Everybody is different and unique. So why punish me for something I never asked to have in the beginning? I never asked for that. I was upon creation. This was written in stone. This is who I was supposed to be. So let me be me versus, you having something else to talk about me for, and not something to build me up, but to tear me down in a world that already tries to tear me down because of who I am, because of how unique I am. Like, Simone is an absolute badass with everything that she does.
Yep.
And I think some people look at those labels because they cannot accept, you know what? That is greatness that exists within that woman, but it doesn't exist within that person. And misery loves company.
Well, and two, I think a lot of people without, like, it depends on how you look at that. For some people, they see, ADHD, bipolar, anything, any kind of neurodivergence as an obstacle. So imagine you sitting there with what you consider to be no obstacles at all, and you're looking at these other people who supposedly are, lower than you from a mental health
Mhm.
perspective, if you're grading yourself in that way, which is, messed up, but that's how a lot of people do it. So let's just go with that as the example. And then you look at you with no obstacle and you're doing nothing
Mhm.
comparatively to what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you kind of have to put them down, because then otherwise you're going to have to be accountable for the reason why, when you've been given more, so to speak, you're doing less.
It just makes you think that when you look at mental health and then you just look at us as people, when can we ever be accepted for exactly who we are as we show up right then and there? How hard is it for reality to do that?
I think the only thing we can do is, like, what can we do but demand that the people, like, in our circle, we can't do anything about greater society except continue to try to affect change. But like, for me, like, that, so that's the long term goal, but in the short term I also still have to live. So for me, I am ruthlessly protective of who is close to me, who I let give me advice, who I let influence me, because if I'm not, then I'm setting myself up for more heartache. I'm setting myself up to be misunderstood. I'm setting myself up, like, people say, oh, well, you don't need an echo chamber. It doesn't have to be an echo chamber to be surrounded by people who respect you. There are people who I don't agree with on a million different things, but there's still respect and love there, and that's cool. But that thing that people like to do where they feel like they need to surround themselves with people who continually disrespect them for variety's sake, I'm not interested in that. I did that for a long time.
Yeah. Dealing with ADHD and, dealing with any other mental health conditions that any of us go through, we're already limited on how much bandwidth we have for ourselves.
Yep.
So how can we have enough bandwidth to entertain everything that's around us? We have to protect our peace. We have to protect our sanity. We have to protect our mental health. We have to sometimes, like you say, protect your no, because
Yes, but look, y'all, you know what? That is the most misquoted thing I've ever said. I love y'all so much. People be out there. Renee said, "Watch your yes." Renee said, "Avoid your no." Renee said, "What Renee said was guard your yes with your life." That is what I said. I said, guard your yes. I'm gonna say it one more time so y'all stop misquoting me. I said,
I said what I said. Hashtags.
I be looking on Twitter sometimes and people be like, as René Brooks said, you've got to watch your no. And I'll be like, I'm so tickled that they quoted me and they cared about what I needed to, about what I said, but I didn't say that. And I don't want to like publicly correct them and put them on the spot. So what I'm gonna just do is I'm gonna refresh and let the algorithm take that away so I don't feel obligated to respond. I don't know what to do with that because I didn't say that. Like, what am I supposed to do? DM them? Excuse me. What
Well,
I
look,
actually said was.
we either way, it's a sign that we appreciate you and what you're saying. The lesson
I love it.
and the overall message is being communicated, and it serves a purpose. And that's why I feel any of us, whether you're especially of us males of color, if you have a story to tell it. The universe assigns people to you every single day, and they assign
Yeah.
those people to you so that you can deliver that message it is for them to receive, so that they can evolve in life, so they can receive it right on time. Don't worry about if it's necessarily the person you want to receive it or not. You are important because you carry something that's going to be beneficial for somebody else's healing, their uplifting, and overall evolution in life. So if you have that chance to communicate your story, if you have that chance to learn a little bit more about yourself, if you have that chance to be a resource or a beacon of light for somebody, now is the time to definitely speak up. We need more people. We need more people like Renee. We need more people like myself. We need more advocates out there that speak up for us, especially in this ADHD community,
Absolutely.
because your voice matters. Like, you do not have to be a casualty of mental warfare. You don't.
Nope.
Everything matters.
You know what? While we're on the topic of this question, I'm gonna ask you if you see it this way, because it's some, this is not a private thought, but one, something I've been watching play out in my life over the past year, because I experienced a lot of personal tragedy this year. And the thing about personal tragedy is you have to get very real about what you have capacity for and what you don't have capacity for, and you have to do it quick because your survival depends on it. Like, there are things you have to do that you may not have the energy to do, but they're not optional, so you have to cut the fat. And one of the things that I've found in the process is that, a lot of the things that I was kind of accusing other people of doing to me, I found were things that I was actually doing to me. So, like, I might have been feeling judged, but I found, like, I'm like, everybody's judging me, but I was judging me.
Hmm.
Everybody, people were misunderstanding me, but I wasn't taking the time to understand myself well enough. And that's not like, I'm not saying they weren't doing it too, they were, but I think identifying what these other people were doing to me allowed me to see where I was also treating myself in a way that wasn't appropriate or respectful.
Yeah. You just made me think of a song by Tyler, the Creator. It's an interlude off of his Igor album, which I love
Okay.
Tyler, the Creator, as just an artist and creator. But he literally says exactly what you run from, you end up chasing.
Mm.
And you have to kind of think about it. It's just like you run away from people that exhibit habits that don't serve you, that make you feel uncomfortable, but you end up chasing it because it becomes your norm. It's been your norm for such a long time. So you're running away from it, but you're operating within it. And how you operate within it is by repeating that same exact habit. So it's just like you want something to stop that you ultimately are responsible for, like that you exhibit yourself that habit. And sometimes in order for, that to end is for you to address the problem as you being the actual source of the problem and you changing the habit. And once you change that habit, then you start realizing the way you respond to it is different. And then that's how you make more space for something else new, something that serves you to actually welcome itself into your life.
I agree. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you to John Hazelwood for being here. You can find John on Instagram at ADHD_J0N and on Twitter at J0N_J0N. You can also find John on social media by clicking the links in our show notes. Okay, please tell us what you think. Write an email or record a voice memo and send it to connect@distractionpodcast.com. Distraction is created by Sounds Great Media, and our producer is Sarah Gurton. I'm René Brooks. You can find me at blackgirllostkeys.com and on Twitter at BLKGirlLostKeys. Until next time.
The episode you just heard was made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.